What's up, small fry swatters? I'm Quackers Co, and this is the fish fry for December 15th, being held at Gone Fishing Hydroplant. Our cookware for this rotation is the 52 gal, the blaster, the jet squelcher, and the heavy splatling. Continuing the train of really good rotations, we have this composition at Gone Fishing that has both really good range for the small stage, as well as a blaster with really good crowd control. It's still very important to paint every single wall that we have here, because as the match goes on, that basket area will become really hot, and we'll need to get in and get out before we get burned. Gone Fishing always supports a really good attack and retreat kind of play style, so try to not linger in one spot for too long, always move around the map, and don't forget to always be painting as much turf and walls during the match while you're getting around. On a high tide, this composition can shine even more, with the range of the jet and the heavy being able to reach just about anything that shows up. Always keep that blaster moving around on crowd control and causing as much damage to enemies with each blast as possible. And always be careful about that spillover that comes up from that tiny ramp. Because of that reason, the basket area on a high tide becomes that much more dangerous. On a low tide at Gone Fishing, we need to remember how important it is to keep that bridge clear as much as possible from lessers. That makes salmon lids and steel eels very high priority targets during a low tide. Don't forget to get your ink back before getting to those sides and creating some openings, that way we can get this area cleared. During a cohawk charge, the 52 gal and the jet squelcher have the best mobility, so as long as the blaster and the heavy splatling are in those turrets, it should be pretty easy to get those eggs a-moving and keeping those cohawks at bay. On a glowfly's occurrence, try to keep that 52 gal and the jet squelcher focused on creating that damage line. As long as the blaster and the heavy splatling are also trying to do crowd control while causing some damage to that goldie, it should be a pretty good clear. Just remember to keep as much of that corner platform painted as possible. It's really helpful to jump in between whenever you need an escape strategy, and that's pretty much the only escape you have. Keep it painted, so that way it's easier to use. The at-foot painting of the blaster and the range blaster works really well for getting just a little bit of extra painting, whilst also still causing damage to that horde. During a griller's occurrence, the jet and the heavy can do a really good job on stunning that griller, but you may have to switch that jet squelcher to small fry control in case the blaster and the heavy have tunnel vision on that griller. On a mudmouth occurrence, with that blaster, you have some incredible crowd control. Hopefully your teammates are throwing those bombs, that way you can keep that blaster on keeping the way clear so you can keep running those eggs. On a mothership wave, all these weapons have some pretty good range, so it'd be best if you can just pick a side and try to keep the area as clear as possible. That jet squelcher and the heavy can do a great job on damaging that mothership when it's on approach. During a goalie seek, we're going to have that problem again of being able to get in the way of other people's shots. So try to make sure that your shots are hitting that goalie, that way you can pop out as many eggs and potentially splat them in one cycle. And try to not leave too much time in between the goalie going into a gusher and opening another one. The quicker that you can get clues to where that goalie is, the better. On a giant tornado, we have kind of the same rules as a mudmouth. That blaster can do a great job at crowd control and causing damage to as many enemies as possible. But as long as you keep that jet squelcher or the heavy splatling at the end of the egg chain, it should be easy to cause that damage without finding yourself surrounded. This composition is looking really good for getting up there in some pretty high hazards, so keep working real hard and you might find yourself with just a little bit of gold in your pocket. Alright, let's get into the cookware. Our first cooking utensil is the 52 gal. The 52 gal's fire rate and its paintability can be a little slow sometimes, but luckily we got these mid walls here at Gone Fishing that can get painted really quickly. Try to put as much distance between you and the wall while you're painting, that way your shot also paints the ground. The 52 gal's range is just a little bit short for pushing stingers or fish sticks from the ground, so make sure you have a little bit of height against a fish stick, or at least try to give yourself an escape strategy in case you go down to the shoreline. If you can keep a steady flow of painting, lesser control, and causing damage to bosses, this weapon can be an incredible tool here at Gone Fishing. Our second cooking utensil is the blaster. We have the blaster in this rotation, and in the next rotation, we have the range blaster. You can make these weapons have a faster fire rate if you swim jump in between each shot. Try to keep that swim as tight as possible, and you can find yourself getting just a little bit of extra height to get that blast to cause some extra damage to enemies, and to get it to fire just a little bit quicker. The blaster is also one of the best weapons for taking out fish sticks and stingers, but just like the 52 gal, as long as you have a little bit of extra height and you know that you have an exit strategy, you can cause that damage and get yourself back with some eggs. Our third cooking utensil is the Jet Squelcher. The Jet Squelcher is usually in the 4th slot on a Gone Fission composition, which usually means it should be played more supportively and focused more as a boss splatting weapon. But with the other weapons that we have in this composition, it wouldn't hurt to play the Jet Squelcher just a little bit more aggressively. But don't forget to keep luring bosses closer to the basket. It's still helpful to utilize the Jet Squelcher's range more than anything else. The Jet and the Heavy can do a great job at causing some damage to big shots in case the 52 gal or the blaster gets down there to finish them off. With the Jet Squelcher's range, you can also take out fish sticks really easy from the ground floor, that way the blaster player doesn't get so much tunnel vision. Our last cooking utensil is the Heavy Splatling. The Heavy Splatling is chilling in our last slot here at Gone Fission, so try to run it as supportively as possible. This weapon does a really good job when it's at a full charge, so try to make sure that you're not wasting that full charge. If you finish off everything and you're still firing, go ahead and paint a little bit of that turf or just a little bit extra on some of those walls. The Heavy will have the hardest mobility in this whole composition, so make sure you got that place painted so you can get it around. Just like the Jet Squelcher, the Heavy can do a really good job at taking out fish sticks from the ground level, but you'll find yourself with just a little bit more tunnel vision. Focus this weapon on taking out stingers fast and causing some quick damage to those big shots, and then ping this way, that way your teammates know that you might need a little extra damage or you might need a little extra painting. During an extra wave, all these weapons have some pretty good damage output to them. As long as you focus that blaster on a little bit more lesser control and that Jet Squelcher on a little bit more boss slaying, you should find it easy to keep this area just a little bit clearer and to have plenty of golden eggs to toss at him. It still doesn't hurt to look for that moment towards the first half of the extra wave, where you can activate your special to not just cause some damage to the Kohozuna, but to also spawn some golden eggs early on in the wave. And the fish fry usually comes out before the stage rotation, so if you want to catch these updates when they're hot and fresh, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell. And if you want other fellow Grizzco employees to receive these tips, make sure you like and share the video. Bye-bye! If you want to give the fish fry an algorithm boost, just comment what your favorite or least favorite weapon is of this composition. If you know me, you know I'm going to give it to the Jet Squelcher. I think that's one of the best weapons that we could possibly have in Salmon Run, and we've got it in a great kit this time. Alrighty, bye-bye.